Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Wurundjeri country, as that is where this podcast is recorded, and extend this acknowledgement to all First Nations peoples, past, present, and emerging. This podcast takes a holistic approach on community building and knowledge sharing that I hope you can utilise in your life. Let's do this.
Marmalade and coffee black. Lesson plans are on the stack. Ready for the students' track. Gonna find our groove.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stranger in the Staff Room, where myself, Zoe Zammit, or as the kids call me, Miss Zammit, I am a first-time teacher sharing lifelong stories. Just going to address the elephant in the room. We have missed a fortnight of providing a podcast episode, and that is because of the topic we're going to be talking about today. Parent-teacher interviews. Oh my goodness. Yeah, jumping straight into the deep end, first with camp, now with parent-teacher interviews. It has all been happening, and there has been a couple of other updates to my teaching schedule since the last episode, so that'll sort of flow into our conversation today. So we will be talking about those changes, and then I will talk about how I organized myself for parent-teacher interviews, how they actually went, and how it's been afterwards. Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting one. And I think parent-teacher interviews are one of those things that like every teacher or pre-service teacher knows they're going to have to do it. But you sort of get there and you're like, great, now what? At least that's how I felt. Again, had some very great supportive staff around me, which made all the difference and made it a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, if you are interested in getting to know the ins and outs of the PTI, parent-teacher interview, don't go anywhere.
Every day we learn and grow, setting minds all in a row, teaching them what they need to know, feeling that we're smooth.
Alrighty, we're back. So it has been really, really good this past term. I'm recording this when we're at the end of week 8, so we're entering week 9 out of 10, and then we have our 2-week break. So an upcoming episode will be sort of like an end of term summary with the help of the Teacher Detox Toolkit, because there's an end of term review in there. If you haven't got yours already, what are you doing? It is undated, so you can start it at any time. So don't even stress about January 1st coming back around. Hit the link in the show notes and you can get yourself a copy on Etsy. So it has been great. It has been chaotic. I live for the chaos. I have come to realize I love the structure that the school bells and things bring me, because it really lets me dedicate time, and it's not this sort of go do what you need, but then you don't know what you need. Yeah, I'll be honest, at least once a week, I have a bit of an imposter syndrome moment where I'm like, what have I signed up for? Or how am I qualified? I'm not qualified. Like, someone is going to realize that they've made a mistake in hiring me. At least once a week. And that could last for 2 minutes. That could last for an hour. When it comes to those hours, I go to my teacher friends, and they're really great because I will share all the things I'm doing or all the things I'm thinking, and they're like, you're doing all that in your first year? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, so why are you worrying? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I've even had friends who are, not as experienced in teaching, still in the teaching industry, but not with as many years as these other friends, who are like, do you know what I did in my first year? This, that, and the rest of it. And there's all these funny stories where I'm like, oh my God, I would have rocked in a corner back and forth if that happened to me. So yeah, friends are everything. And to get really deep and meaningful straight into the podcast, I feel like, so the reason I started this podcast is to allow people to see as much as possible into the behind the scenes of full-time teaching, apart from their placements. So then when they do decide to do an education course, or they do decide to go into full-time teaching, it's not as much of a shock, and hopefully, if I could wave a magic wand, the number of teachers who leave the profession in the first 5 years would drop. And I've learnt that I think one of the biggest reasons people leave is because of a lack of support. Now, whether that means these people don't know when to reach out, or it means that people are on their one-track mind, these experienced teachers, it's their second nature, that they don't even realise that isn't second nature to a new teacher, that is up for debate. But I have been working with, in my personal life, therapists and things like that to be able to word how I need help, or to ask questions, or to say how I feel without, exploding into a million pieces. And I feel like that really helped then going into teaching, because I didn't feel like a burden. And I even had one of my really good friends who has been in the profession for a while say to me, I forget you're a first-time teacher until you ask me a question. So, biggest piece of advice, ask for help, because they've probably forgotten how new you are because you're doing such a great job. So, yeah, I'm going to start off the podcast with some advice. Bam, how's that? The changes that have been made in my teaching journey is I now teach a new class. So originally, and you can check this out in one of my previous episodes where I revealed what I was teaching for the year, I originally was teaching Year 7 English, 2 Year 8 English classes, a Year 9 psychology class. Now it is my Year 7 class of English, 1 Year 8 class of English, my Year 9 psychology, and Year 11 or Units 1 and 2 English language. So I'm in Victoria, so that's a part of the VCE. I think it's Victorian Certification of Education. Yeah. Wow. Graduate year and I'm teaching VCE. Yep, that's how it's going. Look, a lot of times in my placements, because I am a psychology teacher and that's more of a senior school subject, I have taught VCE in my placements. But of course, that has been with someone by my side. And even then, like, it's great. I loved teaching the seniors because they're there to learn. They know how to ask questions. They know how to workshop with you. There's not so much of an authoritative approach to teaching. It's a lot more, cooperative, consultative, which I think is great. But it's so different when it's just you in that classroom, because you are realizing, oh my goodness, these are the last 2 years of these kids' education. This is going to determine whether they get into university straight away. Like, all the pressure. There is all the pressure. And if you talk to an experienced teacher, they're like, it's 1-2, it's fine. Whatever they stuff up here, they can fix in 3-4. But I'm like, no, especially with something like English language, which is so different from your traditional English subjects, you want to make them interested and you want to make them understand it straight away in 1-2, because they could really thrive doing it in 3 and 4. Like me, I love my traditional English. I also did literature as well as English language, but it just interests me so much. And I think it's because I'm a psychology teacher as well, because language and purpose and intent was everything. So that switch happened because of some timetabling situations. And I was able to talk to their original teacher, who is a good friend of mine now. And yeah, we've been able to help each other out. And she loves teaching middle school English. And I'm like, great. And it worked quite well for my mental health, because my 2 Year 8 classes are great. Behavior management is, you have to be on with the Year 8s. And so when you get a good day with them, not a good day, that's a really way to explain it, but like when you've got a day that they are engaged, or they're going to try and put more effort than normal, you push. And because I had 2 Year 8 classes, I would have a day where I could push one, and then I'd have a day where I'm like, oh my God, if I can just get them to sit in their seats, then we've succeeded. So it was very one or the other. And I would never, I would teach 2 Year 8 classes again. It was just, when I'm trying to learn everything, it was a lot of energy. So teaching one of those classes and a senior class, a VCE class, means that I can put more energy into the 1 Year 8 class. So then when I can push them, we will push. And it's not going to be like, oh my God, okay, now I have to do, there's not as much brain power as before. So I'm actually really happy with the switch. And I did English language in my VCE and I did really well in it. And I said in my interview that I'd love to do it, but it was purely because I was a graduate. They didn't put me into it, which is fair. And I had a bit of imposter syndrome at the first VCE meeting. I was sitting like this. I was stunned. I was just like, oh my God, what have I signed up for? Like, it was such an existential crisis. And it was really funny because my teacher friend who was my mentor at my last placement, if you've been keeping up to date since the first episodes, her and the head of science, who is a great friend of mine, sort of looked at me, looked at each other, and as soon as the meeting went, they went straight to me and they're like, you're not very good at hiding your emotions. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm fine. I'm so fine. A single tear running down my face. And they were like, Zoe, you're fine. Like, I actually got a really big compliment from the head of science. She said that they would have loved to put me in a Unit 1, 2 or a Year 11 psychology class this year, but it was purely because of timetabling that it didn't work out. And I was like, you trust me that much? And they're like, yes, like, we have no doubt that you can work with these kids. Like, it's just you doubting yourself. And that was sort of the only motivation I needed. I was just like, yep, okay, we've got this. Even if I don't have it, we've got it, which is great. Yeah, so that was the largest change. I've also taken on an extracurricular with the school, but that is a part of my contract. So with the school that I'm at, you are expected to take part in an extracurricular regularly. So I won't name what it is because it competes with other schools. So just for privacy and things, I won't mention it. But it all came about from a friend of mine who I actually teach his son, which is quite cute. We became close because of that. And then we were just talking about the workload of extracurriculars and things. And he was talking with me about what the workload is for the one that he runs. And I was like, oh, doesn't seem too bad. I feel like I can add my personal experience into this and we could be a good team. I could, I set out the boundary and said, I can't do as much work on it as you do because graduate, still trying to wrap my head around things. I said, but I can act as your assistant. Anything that can be delegated down to me. I am more than happy to do it. And yeah, after talks with the principals and things, I got it, which is great. So I'm not only fulfilling my contract, but I am going above and beyond what was expected of me when I got the job. So yeah, it has been a roller coaster of emotions, but it's weekends like this where I don't bring my work home. I've got my work computer here, but that was just because I couldn't be bothered going back to my desk and leaving it there. But I left my work at home this weekend and yeah, just making sure I take time for myself where I realize I love what I do. And even though it is chaotic, I wouldn't have it any other way. So those are the most recent updates in my teaching life. Alrighty, now you've got my updates. We'll take a quick break and then we are going to get into PTIs and how I prepped, how they went, and what I'm doing now afterwards. So yeah, grab any drink that helps you relax, tea, coffee, you name it. And we will be right back.
Classroom halls, answering those curious calls, cheering when a student falls and gets back up anew.
Alrighty, so it's been a while since I have given a shout out to a social media teaching page that I have become obsessed with. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you all to @TheYoungEducator, who is a lovely lady named Ali, who is a primary teacher, and she also creates resources both for teachers to be able to make their admin tasks more efficient and for students to love learning, which I think is amazing. And her page is so bright and colourful and bubbly, and it just screamed to me when I first started Stranger in the Staff Room. She is incredible. Ali has a great mix of personal life and promoting her teaching resources, so it doesn't feel like she's in your face, buy this. You can actually feel the passion and the warmth that she brings to education. Yeah, so she creates little warm-ups, some inspirational quotes and things, some great maths activities, specific sort of event programs, so like activities for Harmony Day that just went by. You name it, she's got it. And not only are they resources, but she brings those pretty rainbow colours in your face that is on her Instagram page into her resources. So I just think it's amazing. And as much as I know that I'm not a primary teacher, it makes me want to be a primary teacher. That's how much warmth she brings to the screen. So yeah, if you are looking for some amazing resources to give a little boost to your classrooms, as well as helping you out as a teacher, I would recommend following her at The Young Educator, and the link in her bio will take you to her Teachers Pay Teachers shop. So you can shop on there and keep up to date with her amazing, beautiful sunshine self. So yeah, let's get back into the podcast. Alrighty, we're back and better than ever. So, adding to the list of acronyms you're going to learn as a teacher, PTIs is parent-teacher interviews, if you didn't pick that up already. Parent-teacher interviews, they run at similar times for each school, at least in Victoria, but how they are run depends on the school. So, for example, at the school that I work at, a lot of kids and parents travel to bring their kids to this school, which is such a privilege because you get to know all these diverse kids from diverse areas. And, you know, sometimes the only times they see their friends is at school because of the distance. So that's another factor that you've got to take into your behaviour management and things like that. So the way that we run our PTIs is the one that I'm going to talk about, which just happened, was a face-to-face one. So I got to see parents live and in the flesh and with their kids as well, my students. And then this week coming are going to be the exact same layout, but it's going to be on Zoom for those parents that travel or work late and things like that and can't make it during the set times. All sessions of the PTIs ran for 10-minute blocks from 3:40 p.m. to 7:50 p.m., which meant that you would finish at 8 p.m. And there's time blocked out between, I think it is 5:30 and 6:40 for you to have dinner. We are very, very lucky with the face-to-face ones we just had. Dinner is provided. And then with the online ones, you bring your own food, but you still have that time sectioned out so no one can book you, which I think is great. The reason that I mentioned all those changes that have happened to me and my teaching schedule thus far is because it affected my PTIs. With my school, these 10-minute slots can be taken up by parents who have their child in your home group, as well as the subjects that you teach. So because I'm full-time, I teach 4 classes. So you have 5 different classes that can book you. Because of the swap, I was on for 6 classes, which meant that it wasn't even 8:30 on the morning that the PTI booking opened and I was fully booked. Oh my gosh. Which was, you know, it was settled that the program would only have me for my original class. That would have been my first year 8 class. And the same with this other teacher, but with the VCE kids. But that didn't happen. And that's not anyone's fault. Like the higher ups did try their best to make it not happen and they just couldn't. And that's okay. It's okay because they gave me alternative options to try and fill up those spaces. So for example, with our school, there are 2 home group teachers. So I met with my home group partner and said, hey, have you got any slots free? Yes. Okay, cool. Do we have any double ups of any kids that are coming to like a home group meeting? We have 2. Brilliant. I'm going to email their parents and say for them to book with you, and then I will most likely be free or in the same room and they can come and see me anyway. Bang. Those were some slots gone. Amazing. I also sent emails to my new class's parents and said, hey, it's a pleasure to have your kid in my class. However, I have only had them for the past, I think it was a month at this point, which means I will not have as much information as their previous teacher. So I would suggest confirming an appointment with her. Once that's confirmed, cancelling with me. Yeah, that helped parents of my original class be able to book me, which was great. Then there were parents that did email and say, hey, I've been trying to, book with you and there's no more spots. Even after I have done these things that the higher up suggested, which I'm thankful for, which meant that I'd have to email them and say, yep, that's because I'm fully booked, but we can opt for a phone call if you like. So yeah, I've had 2 phone calls with parents like outside of the PTI hours, and I've got another one coming up next week, and I'm sure that list will keep going. Yeah, there's no issue with it as long as, I don't have any meetings and things, which my school, when there is PTIs, there are no meetings booked. So for the week that just went and next week, there are no meetings. So I'm easy. So it all sort of worked out, and like I said, supports everything, and everyone's been great. But it just means that Wednesday was busy. And on Tuesday and Thursday, I am going to have to bring my glasses because I will be staring at a screen for hours. So yeah, it's definitely a matter of looking after myself in those times. Before my PTIs, I was going to do something similar to what my mentor teacher did, which is print out the schedule with the gaps in it if I had any, which, shock, I didn't, and sort of colour coordinate them and collect their work that they have. If I hadn't marked it yet, mark those ones first, because obviously their parents are going to see you before the others, and sort of just have some sort of evidence. You don't have to show them the evidence, but if the conversation leads to that helping, then artifacts are great. So artifacts meaning physical copies of work. And then I was talking to another teacher in my office, and she had this template, which I thought was amazing. You can purchase them, or there's like free to download ones on TPT, Teachers Pay Teachers, which I will put a link in the show notes to, because I don't know who created this original resource, so I don't want to post it and not give them credit. So I'll do a little search thingamajig. This template was basically, you put in the kid's name, the parents' names, date and time of the interview, what subject. There's a checklist of like strengths and things that they can improve on, and then there's a section for notes. And it was like the heavens opened up, because that is such a good thing for me. I can just tick some boxes, I can look down at it like a cue card almost, and go from there. So I printed out a bunch of them, almost too much of them. I got a little bit excited and did those for all of my kids, but I focused on the ones that were on Wednesday. And then I will be doing the same thing for Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah, and so just updating them if there were any changes to bookings, which could happen until the day before the appointment. So Tuesday this week was the last time that my timetable for Wednesday could change. Yeah, so just adjusting that, things like that. Yeah, and that was basically all that was involved in preparing for it. It just felt like so much more, because it was at the same time as marking my senior school kids' tests. Oh my God, the 2-week turnaround. It differs between schools, but yeah, 2-week turnaround. It sounds like a lot, but it goes so quick. So yeah, I was trying to manage my time with that one. When it came to the actual interviews, literally the best piece of advice I got was when I was just about to step out to my office. One of my friends in the office, she's so motherly. I love her. She's like, "How are you going? Are you nervous?" I'm like, "I'm so nervous." I said, "Look, I'm excited to meet people. I'm quite extroverted in that sense sometimes. But yeah, nervous because, it almost feels like I'm going back to my customer service days, which is what I was trying to get away from." And she's like, "Yep, totally get it. Your customer service days will come in handy." She said, "My biggest key is don't bring up anything that will shock the parents." And that really helped, because I marked a lot of these kids' tests and the scores hadn't come out yet. So they were going to come out the next day. So I made the choice not to mention scores and then provide them the next day. So then the kids were aware, and then if parent contact was needed, I could do that. And, I was still, saving face. I was still able to talk about their progress and what they could improve on without giving a score, which was great. I really, really liked that piece of advice, and I would like to pass that on to you when you do your PTIs. So we go in. It worked out well because a lot of my parents were early, which meant that if we needed to talk more, we could. And then if they went quicker, then I had some time in between to just sit and stare into the abyss, because that was how I was dealing with it. I also, in the Teacher Detox Toolkit, there is a PTI bingo that I made, and there should be a reel up on Instagram soon of me completing that, or like little checkpoints of me completing that, which was a nice little sort of break in between if I had some time, just to sort of ground myself, which I thought was cool because it was all about reflection and things like that. Yeah, and all my parents that I had were lovely and so invested in their kids improving. Like, I had a lot of year 7 English, and there was a lot of smart cookies in that class, and I was saying, like, we can excel them, we can do work that's above the standard, but it's also their first year at this school. I don't want to overwhelm them. So like, what's the balance that we can do? And the parents are like, oh yeah, they're fine. And even the kids like, yeah, I'm fine. Let's excel. I'm like, oh yes, bring it on. So yeah, that's sort of what I've got to do afterwards, which I'll touch base on. Yeah. And there was, there's some parent questions that would throw me off guard. Because obviously I've never experienced these parents before. First year at this school, first year of teaching. Whereas a lot of my colleagues had experiences with different families because they taught their siblings or whatever, so they had a bit of background knowledge. So all I did was just be myself, with a lot of makeup on, because they are not going to know that I'm 22. They're going to think I'm 25 and I'm wearing heels. No, I wasn't wearing heels, but I almost did. Yeah, so I dressed very, very professionally. Like, they know I'm young, so they're obviously going to ask these questions to see what I know about my career. But yeah, that was sort of like something that helped me calm down. I'm like, all right, I look a little bit more older, I look a bit more presentable, I look the part, so now I can be the part. Yeah, and so there was a couple of things that threw me off guard. I was nervous meeting a couple of parents because we had some discussions beforehand, but all of them were lovely, even the ones that I wasn't sure about. And it was professional. Like, it was great. I don't know why I was expecting it not to be professional, to be honest with you. And it was great because there was about 4 of us teachers in the one room doing our parent-teacher interview. So if things did go south, there were people there to support me and help de-escalate the situation if I was struggling to. So yeah, felt very safe, felt very pleased with myself. And it actually went really, really quick. Before I knew it, it was dinner, had a chat to my friends. Before I knew it, it was home time and I was getting dropped off at my car. So it was crazy. And then we woke up and we went back to work like nothing happened. And I had a 6-on day. So, oh my God, I was tired. Oh my gosh. So that's how I planned for it. And that's how PTIs went. Now afterwards, like I touched base on the kids that I had notes for, I've now got to follow up with them. If there's any, extension work that I can provide that they do at home, they can do that. And that's something I'd like to improve on, because at school I was quite academically smart and I started avoiding telling the teachers I was finished my work, because then they'd just give me more work. And I don't want to do that to these kids. But it's sort of hard because they've got to complete the work that's set in class, which is at standard, and then you extend them, and then it's a tough one. So I'll work with some of my teacher friends to see how I can do that for these kids. So that's my plan for this week coming up, and that will sort of be added to with these next 2 sessions of PTIs next week. So yeah, that basically sums it up. I have yapped your ear off. I've just had a look at the time framing. I've yapped your ear off for half an hour. I could keep going, but I won't, because that's unfair. But yeah, so that's a bit of a sum up. If you have any questions or experiences from PTIs that you'd like to share, questions, feel free to comment them below. If you have any experiences that you'd like to share, the link in the show notes will take you to a forum, which is meant to be for funny students say, but it can also be horror stories, heartwarming stories, things like that. So feel free to drop your story in there and you might get featured on the podcast. So that is all we have time for today. Stranger in the Staff Room, over and out.
Teaching vibes were in the air, sharing knowledge everywhere, guiding young minds with such care. This is what we do.